Two Trees in the Same Yard. Story by Rebecca Hazelton. Illustrations by Karin Young. For my precious, precocious grandson Dylan, you are my sunshine. There is no such thing as true happiness without contentment, nor true peace without righteousness. Mommy found two little acorns in the forest when Dylan was just a baby. She thought it would be a good idea to plant them in their backyard. She wanted Dylan to see how, just like him, these trees would grow big and strong one day. So she took the acorns and planted them beside each other. Dylan sat in his special seat on the grass and watched his mommy dig deep in the soil. He watched her water them and care for them as they sprouted and grew. Both trees began to grow straight up toward the sky. Dylan grew too. Soon he was crawling around in the grass where the little sprouts had quickly shot up out of the ground. Then he was walking, and the sprouted trees were now little saplings, just like Dylan. As Dylan grew bigger, so did the trees. Soon they were sprouting branches and becoming strong and sturdy. When Dylan was big enough to climb and swing, the trees extended their branches for him to play on. One day Dylan named the trees. He named one Judy and the other Naomi. Judy smiled on Dylan when he named her. She liked that name because it means praise. Naomi also smiled. Her name means my pleasant one. Dylan didn't know that the trees could think. He just named them because that is what came to him at the time. Years passed. Dylan continued to climb the big, strong branches that had grown over time. Judy and Naomi joined their branches so that Dylan could go from tree to tree. Dylan often brought his guitar and sang songs to them. He was a good singer, and they loved to hear a new song he had just written. He would ask them what they thought of his new tune. They rustled their leaves in applause. It seemed to Naomi that Dylan sat on Judy's branches more often than hers. Dylan didn't really choose one tree over the other, but because Naomi was comparing, she assumed he liked her less. Judy loved when Dylan played and sang for her. He sang songs of praise to the Creator of all things. Every time he sang and played one of his new songs, she couldn't help but rustle her leaves and reach her branches up toward the sky. The older Dylan became, the more his songs brought life to her. Unfortunately, Naomi was becoming angry and bitter against Dylan and Judy. She didn't want to hear any of the songs anymore. In fact, she was becoming a Mara, which means bitter, instead of Naomi. Every time Dylan came out to climb on their branches, some of Naomi's branches would be broken off and laying on the ground. Dylan began to wonder whether it would be safe to climb on Naomi's branches at all. Perhaps Naomi was sick? This is what Dylan didn't know. Every day Judy would welcome the birds to sit on her branches so they would sing their morning praise songs to the Creator. She lifted up her branches as far as she could to join in the worship. It gave her great delight to praise her Creator. In fact, she became stronger and healthier every year. She very rarely broke a branch or suffered in a storm. She welcomed the rain, and even more so, the sunshine. On the other hand, Naomi never had a good word to say in the morning. She shooed the birds away by shaking her branches. She didn't want their nests on her. She hated storms, which seemed to rip and tear her branches. She complained about the sun being too hot, or the wind being too strong, or the rain being too much. The older she got, the more bitter and weaker she became. Large branches that had once held Dylan were now leafless and threatening to break. She no longer cared if Dylan wouldn't sit on her branches. She wouldn't talk to Judy. Oh no, Judy was too happy. Dylan left home when he was a young man. Whenever he came home for a visit, he took time to tell the trees all about his adventures. Judy excitedly welcomed Dylan and rustled her leaves in encouragement. Naomi pretended not to care. She was jealous. But instead of welcoming Dylan, she pushed him away. As time passed, both trees grew old. Judy seemed to be more beautiful than ever. She was ever praising her Creator and welcoming whatever came her way. Dylan's children and grandchildren would come to play in her branches and sing songs just like Dylan always did. Naomi's branches had long since broken off, and now she was just a lifeless trunk. In fact, Dylan had been forced to cut down most of the tree over the years until Naomi was just a stump. What Naomi didn't know was that Dylan hated to do that. He tried so hard to make Naomi well. He fed her special tree food and prayed for her every day. The day Dylan decided to cut her down, he cried. He decided that the stump would remain, and he would use it to sit on when he was tired or as a place to hold his own grandchildren. One day, Hope, his granddaughter, shouted, "Look, Baba! There's a green shoot coming up out of Naomi's stump." Dylan looked. Sure enough, there it was. He picked her up, spun her around, and laughed. There's always hope. Later on, as he was sitting on Naomi's stump, he was pondering his own long life. He realized that the two trees in the same yard were giving him a message. Both trees had had the same amount of sun and rain all those years. Both trees had suffered through the same storms and droughts. Both trees had the same soil. Why did one live and become so strong and beautiful, more so every year, and the other sickly and broken? What he didn't know was that one of the trees chose to welcome whatever life offered. The other became bitter and angry, rejecting life's trials. Somehow, even though Dylan never actually heard the trees talk or express those things, he knew that it was true. The message was to live like Judy, to take the storms, rain, heat, and cold as they come, to trust the Creator for health and well-being, to be sweeter, kinder, and more loving every day, to not compare, which leads to bitterness, resentment, and anger. Dylan hoped his children and grandchildren would learn this lesson too. So he got out his guitar and wrote one more song, remembering the words from the life book he always read. Happy is the man who trusts in his Creator. Happy is the man who has his hope in Yah. He will be like a strong and sturdy oak tree planted by the waters, his roots going far. He will not fear when the sun shines its hottest. He will not be afraid when the storms of life prevail. His leaves will be green even when a drought comes. He won't stop praising even in the midst of hail. And when he gets much older, his life will still be sweet. He will extend his patience. His kindness you will meet. And in the end he will be called a tree of righteousness, whose planting was indeed by Yah, a life of joy and peace. Happy is the man who trusts in his Creator. Happy is the man who has his hope in Yah. He will be like a strong and sturdy oak tree planted by the waters, his roots going far. He will not fear when the sun shines its hottest. He will not be afraid when the storms of life prevail. His leaves will be green even when a drought comes. He won't stop praising even in the midst of hail. Happy is the man who trusts in his Creator. Happy is the man who has his hope in Yah. He will be like a strong and sturdy oak tree planted by the waters, his roots going far. And when he gets much older, his life will still be sweet. He will extend his patience, his kindness you will meet. And in the end he will be called a tree of righteousness, whose planting was indeed by Yah, a life of joy and peace. So happy is the man who trusts in his Creator. Happy is the man who has his hope in Yah. He will be like a strong and sturdy oak tree planted by the water, his roots going far. In Hebrew, names have a meaning. The word name also means the character or mark of individuality. This story is based on sing to God, sing praises to his name, extol him who rides on the clouds, to Yah, his name, rejoice before him. I will bless, that was Psalm 68:4. I will bless Adonai at all times, his praise shall continually be in my mouth. Psalm 34, verse 1. Blessed is the one who trusts in Adonai, whose confidence is in Adonai, for he will be like a tree planted by the waters, spreading out its roots by a stream. It has no fear when heat comes, but its leaves will be green. It does not worry in a year of drought, nor depart from yielding fruit. Jeremiah 17:7-8. To console those who mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of Adonai, that he may be glorified. Isaiah 61:3. Death and life are in the control of the tongue. Those who indulge in it will eat its fruit. Proverbs 18:21. And pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the taste, healing for the body. That's Proverbs 16:24. Do not call me Naomi, she told them, call me Mara, since Shaddai has made my life bitter. It's from Ruth 1, verse 20. And see to it that no bitter root springs up and causes trouble. Hebrews 12, verse 15. Get rid of all bitterness and rage and anger and quarreling and slander, along with all malice. Ephesians 4:31. At least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its shoots will not cease. Though its roots grow old in the earth and its stump dies in the dry ground, at the scent of water, it will bud and sprout sprigs like a new plant. Job 14:7-9. All scripture references are from the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Tree of Life version. Copyright 2015 by the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Society. Used by permission of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Society. Thank you for listening.